Welcome back, guys. We are here for another Murders at Karlov Manor set review. Today we're going to be doing blue. If you missed white in our introduction, go check those out, especially the introduction, because we go over new and returning mechanics, as well as all draftable archetypes for your pre-releases. So check that one out. We got Yanks on the call. Welcome back.
Good to be back for the best color in Magic.
Boo! Okay. We're going to jump right in with Agency Outfitter. We're going to try to keep this to under an hour. 6 mana for a 4/3 with flying. When it enters the battlefield, you can search your graveyard, library, and hand for cards named Magnifying Glass and or Thinking Cap and put them onto the battlefield. If you did, shuffle. So you get some free cards. We just talked about the Magnifying Glass being a investigate each turn, so you get some card advantage, and a mana rock, which you don't need if you're searching this out. And the Thinking Cap is a detective-esque equipment, which is fine. Both pretty low-ish power level, but when they're free, they're free. Maybe there's some other things that want artifacts into play. Overall, I think this card's okay, but not a home run. I don't love the stats either way. I hate putting in mediocre cards to help with other mediocre cards. So for me, this is just a 2.
Feels like this costs 1 mana too much in modern day Magic for it to be good. Both cards are mediocre. If you get both of them, then you're probably pretty happy with playing this card, but that doesn't take into account all the times you drew them without this and you're unhappy. So I like it as a 2.
Yeah, the other interesting thing about this card is I actually think the value will go up the slower the format, because you get a lot more
Yep.
use out of the Magnifying Glass. You get to 6 a lot more, but we'll have to see how slow that format is.
More time to sink mana into equipping the Thinking Cap. Yeah.
Yep. Behind the Mask is our second. 2 mana for an instant. As an additional cost to cast, you may collect evidence 6. Until end of turn, target artifact or creature becomes an artifact creature with base power and toughness 4/3. If evidence was collected, it has a base power and toughness 1/1 instead. So you can use this to frogify your opponent's stuff late in the game, and early in the game you can use it as a combat trick to boost your creatures. Or, I mean, I guess technically you can even turn their creature into a 4/3, which might be enough to kill it in a combat.
Yeah, we see this type of transform effect on blue card, seemingly every set now, but it doesn't usually come stapled with the option to cast it as a removal spell,
Yeah.
which is nice. Now, collects evidence 6 is a lot, so you're either going to need to be surveilling a lot or getting things self-milling, or be playing this very late in the game.
I'm not a huge fan of this. I typically don't like these unless they're stapled onto some sort of card draw. So I think this is a 1.5.
I also like it as 1/5.
All right. Benthic Criminologists, 5 mana for a 4/5 Merfolk Wizard. When it enters the battlefield or attacks, you may sacrifice an artifact. If you do, draw a card. This is great with investigation clues. I am a big fan of being able to produce a bunch of things, and then you can sacrifice them. It's an okay rate on their own. You don't have to sink the mana into the clues. This card seems fine to me. It's probably still just a 2 at this point.
Yeah, your 5 mana slot gets pretty crowded, but you'd be okay to run 1 or 2 of these if you're investigating a lot. Anything that replaces itself that has a reasonable body is pretty good.
Honestly, my 5 mana slot hasn't been as chunky as it used to be 2 years ago. I find that I'm getting more 3 and 4 chunky spots now.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it still probably holds true for what you're saying. I guess when I'm saying 5, it's really 5 plus.
Yeah. You really
But
don't want that many more of them.
yeah,
All right. So we agreed on a 2-ish.
yeah. If you've got a lot of investigate running around your deck, you can bump this up a little bit.
All right. Bubble Smuggler. This is the body of a fish and the face of an octopus, which is weird. A 2 mana 1/2 octopus fish with disguise 6. As Bubble Smuggler is turned face up, put 4 counters on it. So a 2 mana 2/1, or you can pay 3 to flip it face down as a 2/2, and then eventually you can flip it and it becomes a 6/5.
Yep.
That's a lot of mana for what you're doing here.
It is, but it's a decent mana sink on a card that doesn't clog up that top of your curve, which is nice. It's got it's got the thing you like to see, a cheap card that is relevance in the late game.
Yeah, I still feel like I'd want to find a better 2-drop.
Yeah, yeah. I'm not thrilled by if I'm playing this just as a 2/1, but I don't hate playing it face down.
Yeah. Certainly not thrilled. That's a lot of mana. The 3 originally for a 2/2, which is overcosted. Then you're flipping it for 6 for a vanilla 6/5. It's not in the colors that care about 2 power or less minions. So like,
Or
I'm not very high on this. I don't think I want to run it. It's my guess is this will get the chop from me most of the time. I'm gonna say this is a 1.5.
the one thing I'm curious about in this set is to see if 2/2 for 3 is actually not overcosted in this set, because it's kind of a complete failure of a mechanic if that's overcosted. You've just printed a whole bunch of cards that are useless. So
Well,
I almost wonder if the power toughness has been turned down a little bit.
well, that's the thing though. Usually it is overcosted, but when you flip it, the juice is worth the squeeze. This one, I don't think it is. Like, I don't think that ability justifies paying for that morph and the 6 mana on the top. Like, that's a lot.
Yeah, I think this card is going to be a little better than you think. Not great. Like, I think it just happened as a 2, but
Okay.
I'll play this card.
All right. I'm hoping my morphs or my disguises, excuse me, are better. Burden of Proof, 2 mana for an aura with flash. The enchanted creature gets +2/+2 as long as it's a detective you control. Otherwise, it has base power and toughness 1/1 and can't block detectives. I like that. You frogify and make them not be able to chump your mostly detective deck, because this is the detective color. I'm here for this.
Yeah, it's got flash, so you can just use it after they block something, so you can eat it instead
Yeah.
of trading.
You can use it cautiously as a combat trick that sticks around. Getting to eat their creature, you can turn it into a 1/1, which is neat. I think this is fine. The flash I'm pretty high on. I'm going to say this is probably... Yeah, I like this way better than the other mask that we've seen, and I like this better than the most recent blue auras. So I'm going to say this is a 2.5.
Yeah, I like it as 2/5.
All right, Candlestick. Yanks did it in the kitchen with a candlestick. For 1 mana, we have...
I don't cook. I wasn't in the kitchen.
Well, you have a trash can in there. Or you
That's
killed
true.
someone who was trying to cook you green food.
Yeah, that was a really dumb idea by them. They
1
deserved
mana for a clue equipment. Equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has whenever this creature attacks, surveil 2. Pay 2, sacrifice the candlestick, draw a card, equip 2. A little too low impact for me, but it doubles as a clue. So if I actively want clues for some reason, I think I'm okay with it.
Yeah, every color's got one of these that are clearly in here because of the Murders at Karlov Manor Clue Edition. They've all got these weapons and they're all clues, so you can sacrifice it. That's a cool theme. Yeah, and the only reason I'm playing this card is because it can cycle. Like, and if I find a use for the other part, great.
Yeah. It's a, cycle when you need the cards, and it's surveil, that's card advantage over time, card selection, which is kind of card advantage in limited. So I think that is a fine card, but it's probably going to get the chop most of the time. It's probably a 2.
Yep, it's a 2.
All right, our first case in blue, case of the Filched Falcon. 1 mana. When the case enters the battlefield, investigate. Okay, I'm here for it. You can solve it if you control 3 or more artifacts. Not terribly hard because it's made 1 already. And solved, pay 3, sacrifice this case, put 4 +1/+1 counters on target non-creature artifact. It becomes a 0/0 bird with flying in addition to its other types.
Okay. I mean, it's that you can do that at instant speed, which is interesting.
Put 4 counters. So assuming you're using the clue that it made, you're paying 4 mana over 2 turns for a 4/4 flyer that you can also sack for a clue.
Yep.
I mean, it's not a bad rate, but it feels slow. But the format feels slower, so I think this is probably okay. There's going to be probably case synergies. There's going to be artifact synergies. It's probably like a 2/5.
Yeah, it's slow, but I don't hate things being slow when you can play them on turn 1, or just find a spot where you have 1 unused mana to get it down. And then you're not really probably doing anything more than your deck is already doing to try to solve this.
Yeah, absolutely.
So then you've just got at instant speed at some point you can make a 4/4. That sounds pretty good to me.
What is your rating?
It's a 2/5.
Great. All right, now we have the Case of the Ransacked Lab. 3 mana, instants and sorcery spells cost 1 less to cast. You can solve this if you can cast 4 or more instants or sorceries this turn. Did that say 4?
Yes, it said 4.
Okay, so 0. Moving on. Whenever you cast an instant or sorcery spell, draw a card. Great. This is constructed. I'm not casting 4 instants and sorceries in one turn in limited.
I mean, my decks only have like 4 creatures in it, and I'm still not casting 4 in a turn.
Right? And my deck has 5 instants and sorceries, maybe. That is a big ol' 0 for me. Thank you.
It does feel kind of like an achievement card, though, for the set.
No, it doesn't even, no. Because you've already used all your instants and sorceries. You can't even draw anymore. Cold Case Cracker, 4 mana for a 3/3 with flying. When it dies, you investigate. I like that. This card seems fine. Evasive, flyer, replaces itself. It's also a detective, which is super relevant. I think this is a 2.5.
I do too. I do want to address a point in chat because this is the single biggest problem with cases and the way they're written. Someone's pointing out that it says if unsolved, solve at the beginning of your end step. That's only if you meet the condition. It doesn't happen otherwise, which is not the way it's written. It does read like it should do that, but you still only solve it if you meet the condition.
Oh, I see. For the previous case, yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Well,
it's a very, the way they wrote it on cases is really poor.
Conspiracy Unraveler, a 7 mana Sphinx Detective 6/6 flyer. You may collect evidence 10 rather than pay the mana cost for this. Rather than pay the mana cost for spells that you cast. I thought it was for this, and I was like, oh, interesting. If once you have 7 mana in limited, then that's enough. I don't think I want to collect evidence 10 to cast anything smaller than that, so...
Yeah, this is like a 7 mana 6/6 that flyer that lets you maybe play 1 extra spell.
Yeah. It would be cute if you, like, tap out and then you get to collect evidence 10 to, like, use a pump spell in combat and they don't see it coming. Like, that's the only time I see this useful.
That will probably be most often used the turn that you cast it.
Yeah. Or you just play this and then you play your other 6-drop and then that's it.
I mean, now that being said, it's still a 6/6 flyer.
Yeah, but 7's kind of high, but the format seems slower, so I'm not scared of that. But it is underwhelming for a mythic. It doesn't affect the board in a big way the turn that it comes out. I think this is not great for a mythic. This is like, I mean, 6/6 flyers, nothing to sneeze at, but it's like a 3/5.
Yeah, I think it's a 3/5. I mean, remember I know it's a mythic, but the other big flyer we've seen so far in blue was 6 mana for a 4/3.
Yeah. I mean, it's big. She's thick.
Yeah. Yeah, but it still can win. It still needs to be killed or it will win the game.
Yeah, she thick, but she do nothing. 3 mana for a 1/4 flying artifact bird. When it attacks, gain control of target permanent you own but don't control. You can also disguise it, flip it for 2. When it is turned face up, target opponent gains control of any number of target permanents you control. Draw a card for each one they gained control of this way. So you give them your poopy stuff you don't need. You flip it up, give them the poopy thing, and then attack in the air, evasive, pull it back. But you got to draw a bunch of cards in the process. So what are you giving them? Like your candlestick, but they can sack that, so you don't really want that. You won't give them their 1/1 tokens.
Yeah, I mean, I think fairly often you're just going to flip this and give them one thing and immediately take it back.
Yeah.
By attacking. But there could be some scenarios where if there's lockdown enchantments, you could be giving them your creature that's locked down. Or like we had the white, like Oblivion Ring type card. If you've exiled like a token, or even exiled anything, you don't care if they have control of that enchantment, you can just give it to them.
Yep.
So there is some extra value, but most of the time you're going to get 1 extra card out of this.
Yeah.
Just still good.
Or if you have, like I said, multiple 1/1s that you don't mind getting
Yeah,
back over a couple of turns, you take a 1/1 to the face. That's fine.
yeah. You trade that for a card.
I think this card seems good. It's value. It's a flying, evasive creature. Artifact seemed relevant, like the case we saw, right? Wanted you to have
Yep.
3 artifacts. So this is probably a fine card.
Yeah, I like this as like I think I like this as a 3/5.
Whoa, you're way higher on it than I am.
Again, it's going to depend on the format. If the format is fast, then it's nowhere near that. But it does seem like it's going to be relatively slow, and you're going to get almost a guaranteed 2-for-1 out of this.
I think it's a little too small for me to give it that high, but I think it's a 3, so we're not too
Okay.
far off.
Or maybe just like the kind of tricky nature of it appeals to me.
Yeah, and it's blue, which makes you confused a little in the head.
Well, I mean, a blue creature would confuse me because those shouldn't exist unless they're just big finishers. But
My 3/5 also tend to be a little bit more oomphy, like game winning ish. Crime Stopper Sprite, 3 mana for a 2/2 flyer. As an additional cost to cast a spell, you may collect evidence 6. When it enters the battlefield, tap target creature. If evidence was collected, put a single stun counter on it. I mean, it's a nice bonus if you have no other collect evidence and you don't think your opponent will have ward collect evidence or anything like that. But I feel like 6 is kind of high for one single stun counter.
yeah, it feels. I mean, I guess this has flying, but it feels like we used to just see 3 mana 2/2, free something for a turn before stun counters existed all the time.
Yep.
But
And
they didn't always have flying. So
they usually
helps.
don't have flying. And on its own, it's a Windrake. Like, we're long past the days of Windrake being good, but this is, like you said, has a little more to it. It's got a relevant keyword and can tap and potentially stun a creature. So I think this is very fine. Probably a 2.5.
Yeah, the more sort of tempo oriented your blue deck is, the better this will be.
Yep.
Um,
Cards that
but yeah,
cycle, like tap a thing, draw a card is going to be more useful in this format if you can collect evidence.
Yep.
Someone in chat saying, hello, do you have any plans to do a limited review for Murders at Karlov Manor? No. We do not intend to talk about any commons and uncommons from Murder at Markov Manor, unfortunately. But check back for the next set. Moving on, Cryptic Coat, 3 mana for an artifact equipment. When it enters the battlefield, cloak the top card of your library, then attach the Cryptic Cloak to it. Equipped creature gets +1/+0 and can't be blocked. Return the coat to its owner's hand.
Okay, so you can just keep making 2/2s.
That is cool. And they become unblockable?
Yeah. While this is attached to them, yeah.
That seems busted.
Yeah, that's expensive because you're basically paying 3 mana for the first 2/2 and then 5 for everyone after that.
But it's not just a 2/2,
Or
right?
3/2, I guess, the
this
first
is
one.
automatically equipped to it. So you're paying 3 mana for a 3/2 unblockable. With the ability to redo
good.
that.
I think the card's good.
This is a 4.
Yeah, I think so. There is also 0 chance I will ever say that I'm cloaking something, and I will call it manifest every single time.
I mean, I keep calling it morph,
And morph.
disguise.
Yeah, there's
sure.
no chance I will ever call these things disguise and cloak.
I might, because I'm a little less set in my ways. But yeah, I'll probably make that mistake a lot. Curious Inquiry, 1 mana for an equipped aura. Enchant creature gets +1/+1 and has, whenever this creature is dealt combat damage to a player, investigate. So this is just strictly worse than, like, Curiosity?
Curiosity usually doesn't give +1/+1.
That's true. And you might actually want the artifacts for various things.
Yeah, I'd rather have Curiosity.
Yeah. Trying trying to rate this in my head. I think that this is still good. I think I'm still running this 100% of the time. It's still as cheap as Curiosity, which is super key, so you can play it at the right moment to make sure you're getting your value out of it. It's a little slow, but I don't think that there's a ton of downside here. I like the +1/+1. Maybe helps it get in where it might not have otherwise been able to. So I think this is like a 3.
Yeah, I think I'm a little lower. I think I'd probably have Curiosity as a 3, but I think I have this as a 2/5.
Deduce 2 mana for an instant, draw a card, and investigate. So it replaces itself, and you're going to get a second draw and the artifact synergies. It's not great, but it's probably like a 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's inherently a 2-for-1. It's just slow.
Yeah. It's 1 more mana for instant speed. Divination. Thank you.
It's 1 more mana for instant speed and the ability to split up the cost.
Yeah, to split up the cost and to get the artifact if you need it.
Yeah.
So I think that this card is fine. It's like a 2/5, I think. We might want the instants and the sorceries in the graveyard for exploring evidence, whatever. Collecting evidence. God, the abilities are being made so fast. I can't keep all the names straight in my head. I mean, it's clearly 1 extra mana for Fathomless Descent, to which we will have descended.
Well, you just draft like 5 or 6 of these and then play the case. They only cost 1 mana to do it. Cast 4 of them in a row.
You just cycle into them all, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Rating-wise, I think this is like a 2.5.
Oh, I think it's 2.5.
All right. Dramatic Accusation. We have 3 mana for an enchant aura. When it enters the battlefield, tap enchanted creature. Enchant creature doesn't untap during its controller's untap step. Pay 2 mana, shuffle enchant creature into its owner's library. So it's kind of cool if they go to remove your enchantment, you can just shuffle that creature away. If the creature has an ability that you couldn't stop, like a static lord ability or something, you can just shuffle it away instead.
Yeah, and I'm curious if there's any spells in this set that let us, and they would probably have to be in blue, that let us return non-land permanents to our hand. So, like, you can activate this and then bounce it back to your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would be cute. No idea if we'll see any of those yet, but it's a pretty decent removal spell for blue.
Yeah. I think this card is fine. What are these? These are usually 3.5?
Yeah.
Blues removal.
Yeah, I think that's right. It's 5 mana to get rid of a creature.
Yeah. Eliminate the impossible. 2 mana for an instant, investigate. Creatures your opponents control get -2/-0 until end of turn. If any of them were suspected, they're no longer suspected. This is cheap. 2 mana to eat most of their stuff in combat and replace itself. I think this is good.
Yeah, was it Strixhaven we saw like 2 mana? Was it like -4/-0?
Maybe.
It definitely didn't replace itself, so.
Yeah. Most recent memory, I was killing people in Khans of Tarkir, like in the reprint with the -4. Yeah. And that thing was pretty rough.
5 mana, right?
Yeah. And that thing was a haymaker that changed some board states real quick.
Yeah.
I think this card is good. The fact that it replaces itself makes that artifact that you are likely going to need. I think this is an easy 2-for-1. Even if you just eat 1 creature and replace itself, you're happy, right?
Yeah, and it's not just the -2/-0, but you might if you unsuspect them, they don't have menace anymore. So they might think something's getting in that now can be blocked.
Yeah, that's true. Huh. I like this card a lot. I think I'm not cutting the first one of these most often. So I'm gonna give it a 3.5.
Oh wow.
I'm high on this.
I'm gonna give it a 2.5.
2.5. Goodness gracious. It is very rare that we are a whole point away from each other.
This doesn't do me any good. I don't have any creatures to block and kill them, so.
But I do.
That's the difference.
All right, Exit Specialist, 2 mana for a 2/1 human detective. Exile Specialist can't be blocked by creatures with power 3 or greater. You can disguise it. When its turn faced up, return another target creature to its owner's hand, and it flips for only 2, which is pretty good. I like this card. It's a relevant creature type, bounces for tempo. It's doing a lot, and then it's even easier to like attack your opponents. I think this is doing a lot. This is a 3.
Yeah, any sort of mana war type card is always worth playing. We were starting to see some blue tempo cards, so maybe that is a thing in this set. Yeah, I like this as a 3.
All right, Fey Fight. 2 mana for an aura, flash, enchant creature. When it enters the battlefield, enchant creature gains hexproof until end of turn. It gets +1/+0 and flying. Holy shiitake mushrooms. I want to play this card. Wow, so you brick their removal and then you get to just dome them in the air forever? This is awesome. It does so much. It's going to like end games. It's just a surprise leap in blue, surprise hexproof. Oh.
Yeah, these are like the kind of combat tricks I actually want to play, the ones that give things hexproof or indestructible, that sort of thing. And,
And it leaves, and it's an aura.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm thinking like the Snakeskin Veil where it left a counter. But this gives something flying is arguably better. Admittedly, 1 mana more expensive.
This is cool. And unlike, it's going to go into the graveyard. Even if they do answer it, that's a solid 2 for 1. Then you can investigate it away or whatever.
Collect evidence.
You can collect evidence it away. The words are so hard now. What happened? It really started in the last set with Descent. And now I can't get anything straight anymore. My brain is completely scrambled with keywords. Every set has like 6 new words.
Yeah, none of them seem, well, Investigate's old, but none of them ever come back because they just don't seem to last.
Rating-wise, I am head over heels for this card. I feel like this is a game-ending cards. I'm going to lose many, many games to this.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. This will definitely lose games. I mean, especially this will be great, especially in like blue-green. Just protecting some big, dumb ground creature that all of a sudden now is flying.
And for like how many games, I'm like, oh, I easily win this game to everything but a Snakeskin Veil. And then they always show me a Snakeskin Veil. And I know how impactful that card is. It makes me want to give this card a super jacked rating.
Yeah, well, the card's very good.
What do you think you give it?
I think I give it a 3.
Oh, I'm a 3/5, and I was like tempted to even go 4. Like, I'm very high on this.
Yeah, it's still got the usual blue your aura risk of 2 for 1ing, although again, flash not as bad, not as big of a risk on this card.
Yeah, this isn't the kind of aura I'm casting 4+1/0 and flying. It's like a happy after effect after I blow them out for some sort of like fight spell or something.
Sure.
So I'm very high on this card, but we'll see. All right, Forensic Gadgeteer, 3 mana for a 2/3 Artificer Detective. Whenever you cast an artifact spell, you get to investigate for free, which is nice. Activated abilities of artifacts you control cost 1 less to activate. That's real nice. This effect can't reduce the mana cost to less than 1. Great value, great fine rate, excellent ability. This card seems very good in any deck, even if you only have a handful of artifacts. No reason not to run this.
Inspector Gadget.
Forensic Gadgeteer.
No, this card's great. I mean, you're getting, whenever you cast an artifact, you're getting a clue, which now only costs 1 to draw a card with.
Yep.
We've seen some other artifact matter stuff, so that's definitely kind of a sub-theme here.
Yep.
Yeah, this card's great.
I like the art of the little thopters. It looks like they're like repairing them.
Yeah.
Or something. Rating wise, I think in the average deck, this is just going to be a 3 or a 3.5. And then in the artifact deck, which there will be one, it'll play massively up like a 4.
Yeah, I think I like it as a 3.5 on average.
All right. Forensic Researcher, 3 mana for a 1/3 Merfolk Detective. You can tap it to untap another target permanent you control. So that's got ramp, blocks, all the things you could want. You can also tap it plus collect evidence 3, tap target creature you don't control.
I don't know why this card feels pretty underwhelming.
Yeah. I like it more for the first ability. The collect evidence is less
Yes.
good. I think it's okay. It's also a relevant creature type, which matters to me. It's probably still just a 2, but I think it's playable.
Yeah, and if you're in a big mana deck, and it's another form of ramp, so there are certainly decks that want this, but not all of them will.
All right. I'm going to let you take 2.
Furtive Courier. This is a 3 mana, 3/2 Merfolk Advisor. Furtive Courier can't be blocked as long as you've sacrificed an artifact this turn. Whenever it attacks, you get to loot, draw, and discard. I mean, looters are always pretty good. You tend to prefer ones that don't have to attack, because a lot of times they'll die, but you've got a way to force this thing through, especially if you're in an artifact deck, or even just investigating every once in a while. It's not bad.
Yeah, it still doesn't feel great unless you're in the artifact deck. So I think in the average deck, I'm still giving this a 2.
I think a 2 sounds about right.
In the
It
artifact
definitely
deck,
has
it'll
some
definitely
upside.
be much better.
Yeah.
Or if you have like the Thop guy. But that's also, again, you have to be in the artifact to make that many investigates. So
Yeah, and you don't necessarily want to be sacrificing your clue to a loot. You'd rather just draw a card. I mean, you might want the 3 damage though in this case.
well, no. That's not the way it works. It says can't be blocked as long as you've sacrificed an artifact. So you
Oh,
do
sure,
draw the
yeah.
card.
You do it first.
Yeah. So you just sack
Yep.
it to draw a card, and then you get to thwomp them for 3 for free
Yeah.
while also looting as a bonus.
Yep. No, that makes sense.
So I think actually in the artifact deck, when you are going to be able to generate clues in mass by having like the Thop rare or whatever, that card massively plays up like a 3.5
Yeah.
because of
No,
that.
absolutely.
All right, next up.
Hotshot Investigators. 6 mana, 5 and a blue for a 4/4 Vidalcan detective. When it enters the battlefield, return up to one other target creature to its owner's hand. If you controlled it, investigate.
So you get to remove like their auras, you get to re-trigger ATBs. It's a little pricey for a 4/4, but I don't hate the tempo.
Yeah, this feels just too expensive. I mean, the value's kind of there, but that's a lot of mana.
So oftentimes we see like, what was it, a 3/2 for 3, or you could kick it for another 3, so 6 mana for a 3/2 that bounced, and that card was good. Or it was cheaper if you had a wizard or something, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, those cards to me are only good because you can play them for less.
yes. So the difference was that it was flexible, that you could just play it for like a slightly low rated creature, but this guarantees you get a better body for the bounce. So I don't hate it if your top end is slim, but I don't love it. I think that I will play a good number of these throughout my time. So I'm going to say it's a 2.
Yeah, I think two feels fine.
All right, Intrude on the Mind, 5 mana for an instant. Reveal the top 5 cards of your library and separate them into 2 piles. An opponent chooses one of those piles. Put that pile into your hand and the other into the graveyard. Create a 0/0 colorless Thopter artifact creature token with flying. Then put a +1/+1 counter on it for each card put into the graveyard this way. So they punish you for like doing like the rare and all the lands, you know?
They keep trying to make these new versions of Fact or Fiction, and they have yet to find one that really works. I'm curious if this one does.
It's a little expensive, but it's instant speed, which is cute. I think this is very playable. I think this is very, very good, actually. Even if you just get like, your rare and a land and then a 3/3, then that seems pretty nice.
I feel like at least half the time I cast this card, I'm going to split it 5/0. It'd just be like, you want to give me 5 cards, or you want to give me a 5/5 flyer?
Yeah? Interesting. It's 5 mana, 5/5 flyer.
At instant speed. Like, so you're almost always casting this end of turn,
I think
end of
I'll.
your opponent's turn.
I think I'm more likely to split it 4/1
Yeah, I could definitely see that happening.
because I feel like I want a little something more than just the Thopter, but whatever. We'll figure it out. I still think this card's very good. I think this is like a 4.
Yeah, I like it as a 4.
Jaded Analyst, 2 mana for a human detective, 3/2 with Defender. Whenever you draw your second card each turn, it loses Defender and gains Vigilance, which is cute. It's a detective. Drawing your second card in a clue format, not going to be hard. I think it's filler, but fine to play. It's a good rate. It trades up real well, so I'm going to say this is a 2.
The 2, we get these cheap blue defenders that can lose Defender for some condition every set. They're always kind of mediocre.
Yep. I like that it's a 2 mana, 3 powered creature, which is going to trade real good. The Living Conundrum, 5 mana for a 2/5 with Hexproof. Why is there a Hexproof card in this set? If you would draw a card while your library has no cards in it, skip that draw instead. Excuse me? Excuse me? No. As long as there are no cards in your library, the Conundrum has base power and toughness 5/5 and has flying and vigilance. Or 10/10.
10/10.
So this uncommon is mill proof?
Yep.
And it's hexproof. No. Stop it, Wizards. Stop it right now.
Wizard says no more cookies for you.
Stop it. Get rid of this card. This is bullshit.
I mean, this card's not good.
I hate this card.
Well, the card in sheer principle is a 0 because anything lower than Mythic with hexproof on it should not exist. But, yeah, I mean, the card's just not a good card, though. It's a 5 mana 2/5 hexproof most of the game, unless you've got a whole bunch of stuff to pile onto it.
I mean, like the flying thing and the curiosity and like a bunch of other things that are going to make it really annoying. Like drafting the 4/5 hexproof turtle was like a straight up deck. And I agree this is weaker, but like I don't know, this doesn't sound awful to me.
It's not unplayable, but I don't think it's good. Like I don't know. I want something way better enough for 5 mana than this. Like I don't want my 5-drop shouldn't need to pile 3 or 4 other cards on it to make it good.
Yeah, but the thing is hexproof makes things real good. I don't know. I'm torn. I feel like this is gonna surprise you. I'm not gonna give it a good rating, but I think it is playable.
I mean, it's going to annoy me, but I don't think it's going to surprise me.
Everything in this format also seems pretty small. So, like, I think it's going to deal with a lot of stuff. We already said the format seems slower than normal. So, like, from what we've seen in the last couple of years, that means, like, mill games will be a thing.
I'm almost never considering mill when I rate a card.
No, I'm mostly considering the hexproof, but
sure.
As a fringe benefit, like it like the cards that say like pay to put a card under your library, like that's a similar vibe where like some percentage of games will go to who has more cards in their deck, and then you might have to force someone to make moves they shouldn't make, knowing that you can do that. So that's kind of what this does. I think it's a 2. I think it's going to be annoying, and I think I'm going to lose games to it.
I think it's probably a 2 as well, but I don't see myself ever putting this card in my deck.
So for you, it wouldn't be a 2?
No, because I think on average, I think people will. I just don't think it's good. I think on the average for most people, it'll probably be playable. I mean, I can't say I won't because I might have a terrible deck that needs something.
All right. Lost in the Maze. X blue blue for a flash enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, tap X target creatures. Put a stun counter on each of those creatures you don't control. Tapped creatures you control have hexproof. Cute. Holy shit. So they go to like remove your thing. You're like, tap it. It is hexproof now. And also tap all of your shit, stun them, untap, kill you. This is baloney.
Yeah, this is a heck of a tempo card.
This is gonna win games. This just ends games. This is a 4.5. Like, do you remember Sleep?
Yeah.
This is a more flexible
yes.
Sleep.
Agreed. But I'm not putting this at a 4.5 because it only ends the game if you have a decent board presence already.
I mean, at the very least,
it doesn't end the game on its own.
Even if it doesn't, like the low end is you're, bricking their removal and tempoing them and preventing, buying yourself a lot more time. It's so flexible and it does a bunch. I think this
card
can be game ending.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not that far away. I think it's a 4. I think it's a very good card. I just wouldn't put it that high.
Mistway Spy, 1 mana for a 1/1 flyer with Disguise. When it's turned, face up until end of turn. Whenever a creature you control deals combat damage to a player, you get to investigate. Okay. So it will investigate once on its own, probably.
Yeah.
Okay. I think this is cool. It's a relevant creature type. We need detectives. Detectives do things. It's a flyer. 1 mana flyers are usually fine. I think this is a 2.5.
Yeah, that sounds fine. I'm just trying to figure out 5 mana for that effect is a lot. I know you're doing it over 2 turns, and I feel like this is actually one I'm probably just going to play as a 1/1 flyer more than the other way around.
I feel like I'm flipping it up when I have the ability to do multiple creatures in a turn, not just itself. Probably also depends on how much you want the investigate counters or tokens.
Yeah, 2.5 sounds fine.
Next up, we have Out Cold, 4 mana for an instant. This spell can't be countered. Tap up to 2 target creatures and put a stun counter on each of them and investigate. It replaces itself. I like this. This seems annoying, and I feel like I will lose a lot of games to this card.
Yeah. I like that it even says on the card, this includes by the ward ability for the can't be countered.
Yeah.
Yeah. The fact that it replaces itself makes it pretty good.
There have been a few stun counter cards in the last few sets that have really surprised me. They've made the We Were Wrong videos for sure. So I think this card's going to be good. The format seems tempo-y, seems long. So I hate to give it a 3, but I still think I'm probably not cutting the first one of these. So that's pretty close for me.
Yeah, I think I've got it as a 2.5, but on the higher end. Like I don't hate calling it a 3.
Yeah, we're in the exact same boat then. Profts, I can never say that.
I just want to say profit every time I see it.
Or I just want to straight say prof, because that's like what I'm used to, right? Like actual prof. All right, Profts Edict Memory, 2 mana.
Eidetic.
Yeah. Like the Profs Eidetic.
It's a tough card.
The FTS is just like does not. Whatever. This legendary enchantment.
I think it's pronounced Fibblethip.
Fibblethip. I like it. Okay. 2 mana for a legendary enchantment. When it enters the battlefield, draw a card. You have no maximum hand size at the beginning of combat on your turn. If you've drawn more than 1 card this turn, put X +1/+1 counters on target creature you control, where X is the number of cards you've drawn this turn -1. So it comes into play. Automatically, you draw it. It cycles itself and puts a +1/+1 counter on a creature. And then if you can continue to do so, you get more stuff. I think this card's great.
Yeah, it's cheap. It has an immediate impact because you're getting that creature you play before combat. You don't have to wait till end of turn or your next upkeep, wherever you get it at combat.
So I'm going to call this a 3.5 in the average deck. If you have the Thop clues, investigates, you're good. But I think it's fine in any deck.
Yeah, I like it as a 3/5.
All right. We have a 3 mana 3/2 human detective. Whenever the inspector or another detective enters battlefield under your control, and whenever a detective you control is turned face up, you may draw a card, and if you do, discard a card. Loot. Great. Fine rate on its own. Relevant creature type. This is a 2.5.
Yep, it's a 2.5. Nothing spectacular.
Reasonable doubt. 2 mana for an instant. Counter target spell, unless its controller pays 2. And then you can also suspect up to 1 target creature. I don't like pay up until 2. I don't really like to touch these unless they're pay 4. And even then, not usually. So for me, this is a 1.
Yeah, it's a 1. I think my level's a little lower. I think I need 3. Because Mana Leak is just a great card, but 2 is not enough.
All right, reenact the crime. 1 blue for an instant, and exile target non-land card in a graveyard that was put there from anywhere this turn. Copy it. You may cast the copy without paying its mana cost.
So most of the time you're trading for this work.
I don't like blue, so I'm not really interested.
Agreed. It's powerful.
It's probably powerful, but it's also super situational. It's going to do a lot of nothing. Then you're going to have premium turns to use it, and you can't get blue. So no, thank you. I think I'm off of this card. A 2.
Yeah, I'm trying to figure out if this should be a split card, but I don't know what it would split with. Like, you'd say maybe Surveil, but then you're also casting a spell, which makes 1 triple blue harder to get to.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, 2 sounds right. I mean, it feels weird to say 2 because it has a high power level, but it's just so hard to cast.
Very, very hard to cast. All right.
Very high variance card.
Steam Core Scholar, 3 mana for a 2/2 flying with vigilance. When it enters the battlefield, draw 2 cards. Then discard 2 cards unless you discarded an instant or sorcery card or a creature card with flying. Yeah, this card seems great. It is a rare.
I'm just chuckling at the flavor text. That's weird.
I don't get it.
It's a weird.
Oh. I get it. Yeah, this card seems very good. I like the idea of, looting 2 or 1 for free on a double keyword 2/2 flyer.
Yeah, it's like Windrake plus.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in for that. I like this as it's not game breaking. It's just some value. So I like it as like a 3.
Yep, also a 3. Excellent. Sudden Setback, 4 mana for an instant. The owner of target spell or non-land permanent puts it on top or bottom of their library. I like that you can hit the spell on the stack. That's pretty cool.
Yep, you can hit spells that say it can't be countered because this doesn't counter it.
Yeah. And then it's not like a brick like counter spells where like, oh, it resolved, I didn't hold open my mana, this is now useless, right? Like it's super flexible, you can do both. It's a little expensive, but I think that's okay. This is a 2.
Yeah, I think it's a 2. I'm borderline 2.5 on this just because I like the sort of time walking people by putting stuff on top of their library.
Yeah, it's a little pricey for me. Means like you're also not likely progressing the board, so
I feel like it's close enough that maybe if it was like 3 and a blue, I'd put it at 2.5, but the double blue makes it worse too.
Yeah, we're still really close. When we were in white, I was saying X 0.25. You're welcome to use our new fake scale. Oh, I totally forgot. Weren't we going to go into like a 1 through 10 scale just because...
We had talked about that, yeah.
Because the power has condensed so far. Like we used to have 1s and like 1.5s very often, and now that doesn't really happen. So everything is kind of chunked up into that 2-3.
Everything's a 2.5 or a 3, or a 2.5 to 3.5 is like 85% of the set.
Yeah, they've gotten rid of most of the chaff. So I totally forgot we were going to do that.
I did too.
And then I just remembered. Surveillance Monitor, 4 mana for a 3/3. When it enters the battlefield, you may collect evidence for. Whenever you collect evidence, create a 1/1 Thopter. I like it. I like it a lot. Comes into play
Yeah.
with a free, with a 1/1, and every time you do it after that, you get another. And I'm pretty confident that you'll be able to do it the first time reasonably enough. So I like it. It's a 3.
Collect evidence is just a mechanic I'm having a tough time figuring out, like, how much is collect evidence for? Like, how hard is that?
Well, we've seen a lot of loot. And I
We
think
have.
that that's going to be really, really useful.
And it does add a different dimension to looting where you're not always pitching your extra lands because you might want something with mana cost in there.
Yeah.
Um,
And you're not punished for doing so, like with that flyer from the previous one, right? You can get rid of a spell and then actually utilize those cards later.
yeah. Yeah, I think this card's a 3 because you should be able to get that Thopter either from this or from something else later on.
All right. Next up, we have Unauthorized Exit. 2 mana for an instant. Return target non-land permanent to its owner's hand. Surveil 2. Yes. I like instant speed draws or instant speed bounces. I like getting to surveil and have some card selection. I usually don't like to cut one of these. So for me, it's like a 2.5.
Made it all the way to the last blue card before I got my bounce target non-land permanent to have fun with dramatic accusation.
Yep.
Um, yeah.
2.5?
2.5, yep.
All right, Yanks, that's the end of the blue cards. How do you feel? This was your color. Are you happy?
Doesn't feel as controlling as blue usually does. There were a lot of tempo cards.
Yeah, that's the blue I
but
like.
it is drawing a lot of cards because there's a lot of investigate, which I do like.
I like touching cards.
So yeah, I'll be interested to see. There weren't as many flyers, I think, as I was expecting. Yeah, we'll see. And curious how cases and collect evidence play out in blue.
Yeah, I was excited to see blue felt on theme, it felt synergy, it felt detective, it felt collect evidence. I'm pretty excited. I think that this will make for some fun synergy based builds. All right.
And no fives again.
Yeah, that's true. No 5s. We did have one in white, I believe.
Yeah, that's true. We did have one.
All right. For those of you guys watching on YouTube, leave us a comment down below. Let us know what you think of blue and murders at Karlov Manor in general. Don't forget to like and subscribe to the video if you enjoyed it. Yanks, thanks for joining us.
Happy to do it.
All right. We will see you guys next time for black. It should probably be up already. Thanks for watching. Bye.